The internet is overrun with reviews and praise for this special episode. It was called The Sign. People have been posting reactions to social media saying that, I mean, many adults saying that they were in tears watching this. I'm just going to say, I have not seen it. My family, we are huge Bluey fans, so don't spoil it for us. But I can relate that this is I can imagine what's in this show because almost every episode is so great of Bluey.
Yes, absolutely. The idea that adults would be in tears at a Bluey episode, I mean, I think the reaction is particularly heightened for this most recent one, but this is a show that regularly brings grown-ups to tears. So this is not out of keeping for Bluey.
You have 2 children, I understand?
I do.
And what's Bluey? Like, what's the level? You obviously have to watch Bluey for work, but I assume it's on regardless.
I do, yeah. My daughters are 10 and almost 7, and I started watching Bluey with them years ago, around when the show first came out. It was actually flagged to me not by their friends or by them, though. It was flagged to me by a fellow TV critic who was like, you must watch this show. It is absolutely incredible. And we have been watching it religiously ever since then. And I think one of the really unusual special things about this series is that my kids are still absolutely enraptured by it. Anyone with kids understands that a show that kids love when they are 5 is rarely also a show that they love when they're 10 and that their adults will love when they're 40. But that is the case with Bluey. It is something really unusual in the children's TV world.
I mean, never mind children. We were at our producers meeting, our morning chat. Some of our producers were saying, oh, the talk of The Sign, this episode that just aired last night, they're obsessed with Bluey. And they don't have children. They're just, they want to see it regardless. So it doesn't,
yeah,
as
my
you say,
colleagues too.
It transcends ages. Why do you think? I mean, I have my theories.
Yeah, well, I would love to hear what your theories are. I think one of the things that I think is so fascinating about this show and so effective for people of all ages is that it is so unusually good at reminding adults what it is like to be a child, what it was like when they were children, and at the same time, what it is like for children to imagine being an adult. Both perspectives are crucial to how the storytelling works on Bluey, and so you don't have that kind of condescending parrots look down at children, nor do you have this sort of fantasy world where children are imagining adulthood without any kind of grounding. It is this beautiful sort of round circle of everyone living and thinking about each other's perspectives, and as a result, I think adults are able to access this really emotional, vulnerable memory of what childhood was like that so few other children's programs have been able to really represent.
Yeah, I feel like you've sort of nicely, more eloquently summed up what I was going to say, which is that I see myself in Chili when I'm watching it. Chili's the mother character, in case anyone. But let's talk about the format, because the episodes are usually pretty short, just 7 minutes long. This last episode was about 4 times that in length, so that's why that alone is pretty special. But how do they say so much in such a short window of time?
Yeah, I truly think that the storytelling on Bluey is akin to magic, how much they are able to fold into these 7-minute episodes. They are usually based on a children's game. It is usually the idea of Bluey and Bingo playing some game together. And so you have this game mechanic that layered on top of it is this story about the feelings that they're going through. And then you'll also have some story about what the parents are going through. And they are able to build it all into this very short, concise, lovely arc. And because it is so short, you get these beautiful gem-like scenes that are almost as much about mood and gesture as they are about plot. And it is poetry-esque in the way that they are able to suggest so much without actually having to say all that much.
Kathryn, there will be people who are watching who have not seen this Bluey cartoon, and they're going to be like, you're talking about a kid's show, and you're so eloquent describing poetry here. But some of the reviews that I saw online, I mean, there are adults comparing it to some of the greatest TV shows that have been made for adults. And not that it's in any way like Breaking Bad, but that was a highly quality show that was out there. And that's the kind of quality that people are comparing it to.
Oh, I completely agree. I I love thinking about narrative and storytelling. And if I were teaching a class right now on narrative structure, I mean, Bluey would absolutely be on the syllabus. I think it would be hard to do better than it. And I think part of what is so impressive about it is the way that it is able to, I think a lot of adults entertainment is so ironized and so violent, and we have associated all of those things with quality, right? And I do think it is so refreshing for people, adults particularly, to be able to look at something like Bluey, which is so emotional and so sincere and so optimistic about like human nature and the possibility of growth, and say like, oh yes, quality also looks like this.
Has Bluey upped the game for children's cartoons? There's a lot that play in our house. None don't really come, no offense, but none come close to Bluey as far as I'm concerned. Is everyone going to be aspiring to that new level?
I mean, we can only hope, right? And it's not to say that everything should try to mimic Bluey. I think that is probably a recipe for failure, because to try to just pull off a Bluey strategy without actually having the feeling and the sort of intense depth of personal relatability that Bluey does is probably a mistake. But if instead the model is like, let's give really caring, really thoughtful TV creators enough resources to make a children's show that they care about deeply and that is personal to their lives, that's probably a strategy that I desperately hope more studios do try to copy.